Adventist isn't going to come in. It doesn't mean one Adventist or two or 10 aren't going to come in, but as a group, they failed. And I think um, somebody said once that the external messengers to the Levites have failed, or at least they didn't do a good job. Okay. So I'm going to say all of that is fairly evident that it's all true, not just opinion. Okay. I think the logic was, I'll just use CNN because we've always just used CNN as a kind of umbrella name for left-wing media. They concentrate too much on race. Yes. Okay. So Elder Test did say this. They're still concentrating on race when actually their message, according to God, is supposed to be gender. Okay. Don't forget to mute your mics unless you want to shout out. So what jogged my memory is I think Elder Tess, I think in one of the latest Vespers, one of the last ones she did, there was a group, a militant group. I've got a feeling it was Proud Boys, but anyway, and they were going to disrupt a thing on gender, okay, some sort of parade or some sort of event, and all the police showed up. They prevented this. They prevented this illegal action by, I think, the Proud Boys, whoever it was. And CNN concentrated all on race and put it into a racial context. Okay, so I think Elder Test did say that. So the Levites have failed as a group. The messengers have let them down. So if a messenger stood in front of you and said, left-wing media, they're all useless. Example A, example B, example C. Michael Moore, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They've all failed. Look what they're doing. Biden, Clinton, etc. Opinion or fact stroke doctrine? I'm not saying anything else. Someone has to contribute, even if you don't know. Just tell me what you're thinking.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Yes, I think it's an opinion.
Okay, tell me why.
They have, or that message I've just used, or he has generalized, he has not technically tells the details why. Maybe there's something they have done right, then there's something they have done wrong. So they have just put it generally.
Okay, so I agree with you. For what it's worth, again, it's not like I'm the authority, but that's the way I see it. So have a think about this then. Levites, as a group, have failed. They're not coming in as a group. Versus the messengers, I better put external, because I only mean the external messengers are all bad. So ordinarily I'd ask this as a question, but I think the way I've written it, I've made it quite obvious. I'm going to say this is a doctrinal fact, okay? Prophetic fact or a prophetic doctrine. And that's because, how far away are we? Okay, let's not do that. That's because it's so late in the day that it's very clear there's no one coming in. We haven't even, we haven't had any, even the slightest indication of any interest from an Adventist group. And it's very late in the day now. Okay, so I'm going to say that's a fact. Do we agree, by the way? Because you could argue maybe they will come. Have a little think. The external messengers are all bad. We're going to say that's opinion. Okay, now the way I've written it, I've made it a bit obvious because the Levites have failed. If I'd have written here, all the external messages have failed, I could say that's true. Or could we actually? Have all the external messages failed? Gina, what do you think? Or Joseph? Those are the only two names I've learned. So know your target because you've spoken
Okay, I'll
before.
come in. I'm just having a bit of network issues. I'll come in later.
Okay, no worries. In that case, Joseph, it's all down to you. What do you think? Or anyone else? It's just because it all went silent, I started.
I'm Russell, and
Russell, okay.
yeah, though I don't know if like it's also just like an example. Yeah, I think when we look at the opinion and when it comes to facts in terms of like the external prophets, those the external prophets, the messengers, like there's like probably if an event has happened, yeah, yeah, I'll give like an example where I think there was that issue to do with Will Smith and when he slapped the friend because that friend actually said something sexist about Smith's wife. Yeah, which is an event. And when it comes to news, like everyone, like even including Fox News, they'll report that such an event actually happened. Yeah, which is the fact. But when it comes to actually how they will interpret or like their opinions on that event, that is where I think we're going to see the difference. Yeah. And also, like as you said in the beginning, even these like good news medias, their opinions on that issue was more to do with race. Yeah, and they leave out the other side of sexism. Yeah, so would say, okay, on the event when they were reporting that such an event happened, it's actually accurate. That event happened. But when it comes to their opinion on that event, their focus was race. And we, as a movement, would say, yes, race, we can see race there. But there is also sexism. And what is more, like what we need to see more, especially in our time, it's race. Oh, it's sexism. Yeah. So So I believe that will be like also part of an example of the facts. It's actually them reporting what has transpired, the news. And when it comes to the opinion, is like they are thinking on that news which has actually happened. Yeah, and that is where somehow, in certain ways, we might differ. And it's due to those opinions, I think, even where actually even the left wing, some of the good news medias, they actually failed to do their work. Probably they'll give a bad opinion.
Okay, thank you. So we're saying they're all bad. I think you're saying they failed, they concentrate on race. So they're all bad. Okay. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, bad.
Okay.
Was she?
Yeah, I might say,
Didn't stand for women's rights.
okay, I might.
Personally, in her personal life, politically.
Okay, thank you. I was saying when it comes like to say like they are all bad, yeah, I might not be much willing to categorize them in that situation. Yeah, but sometimes they do their job properly, and sometimes they don't do their job actually properly. I think that is what we say half right and half wrong, something like that. Yeah, they are half right and half wrong when it comes to the left wing. Yeah, but there is a point when the Nethanims, they will need people who are not half right and half wrong to lead them. And that is where the external ends up failing now.
Good point, I think. I think that's a good point. They can't be half right, half wrong. I don't want to say they can, but anyway, I get your point. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I don't think she particularly failed. I'm not an expert on her, okay? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong in anything I say, but I'm just going to put her name up there because I mentioned Michael Moore, Ocasio-Cortez, okay? But if I'd said Ruth Bader Ginsburg, okay? Hillary Clinton, women's rights, taking them to the United Nations. I think I had someone else in mind. Anyway, so Elder Tess will say you have to sift the left. Okay, you have to sift the left-wing media. So she has taken articles and not told us the source, the title, the author, the date, anything like that, because she doesn't want to endorse the entire article. Okay, so this is to do with being all bad. Okay, because that article wasn't all bad, because Elder Tess sifted some of the good stuff out and presented it to us as a good example. Okay, so I'll just put, even though it's not a person, under these bullets, I'll put sift the left because some of it's good. Okay, so going back to my original thing, my original rant, when I said they failed because they had bad messengers. These messengers concentrated too much on race and not gender. But you still need to zoom in. You can't. Elder Tess has told us we need to be mature plants. That's what the latter rain does to us. It matures us. And we can't just make sweeping statements anymore. That's all bad all the time, okay? Even though they have failed. So they have failed. They're not all bad all the time. So you could get Elder Tess on one day telling us how great Hillary Clinton and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's work was and is in defending women's rights, LGBT. And she could maybe spend an hour or two presentation going through all of their achievements. Okay. And she would be sifting those articles to do that. Then the very next day, Elder Tess could stand up and give a blistering account of how bad the left is. The extreme left is the same as the extreme right. They've all just failed. It's all hopeless and useless. Okay. So in my mind, I'm thinking that would be when we identify a messenger's opinion. Colloquially, we would say you've caught them on a bad day. So they're feeling very pessimistic about what Russell or Joseph, I think Joseph said about facts, because they report the facts. And so on a bad day, a messenger opens up the newspaper, the laptop these days. They're in a bad mood, they read it all, and then they present very negatively. And on a good day, they do the opposite. Okay. Any thoughts?
Aaron,
Yes.
yeah, this is Regina. I've got a question. So anyway, you forgive me, my network was bad, so I didn't quite follow the lesson today. So, but yeah, how do we identify? Okay, I'll come to the messengers, but so I'm looking at what is written on the board. You've talked about, yeah, the newscasters or the reporters themselves. How do they report? How should the news be reported? Yeah, they tend to have their biases and there are those opinions that they put into the news. So there are facts, and then they'll add in their opinion because that is where they are heavily leaning towards. So they'll put in their ideas and leave out certain things. So in short, there is the way news is structured, and the structure of the news, it's you reporting what you've seen, not me adding what I want. Oh, I found two men hitting an old woman. And then instead of reporting it the way it is, just like that, yeah, I found three men hitting an old woman, but she really deserved it because of this and things like that. So I'm adding my opinion there. I'm not, but news demands that I have to report what I've seen without adding what my thoughts are on that issue. So is it the same where when it comes to the messengers where there is the way the message, our prophetic message is structured? There is the way it has to go and things. And I'm not, I just want to ask if we can apply that to the message. In short, I didn't follow quite right. I was behind. So can that be applicable where there is the way our prophetic message is structured, and then at times maybe like you said on a bad day, which maybe I might be wrong connecting two things, and then they add in their opinion. Is that like that or what? Please correct me. I want to follow.
Okay. I think I'll have to repeat it back to you. So you're saying, you're asking me, do I think the way these external messengers should do their job is just to report on the facts and not give their opinion? And I'll add to that, or if they're going to give their opinion, it should be a radical feminist opinion from a radical feminist perspective. So I'll use the example that you used. An old lady is beaten up. Okay. This is overly simplistic on purpose because I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so I'm using a very simple example. An old woman's beaten up, and it's an old Chinese woman. Okay, and the perpetrators, the attackers, were two white men. Okay, and then you're saying should they just report what happened? Okay, so I'm going to say no, I don't think so. I don't think it's just facts. That becomes problematic in itself. Try and remember. I think the way they should report it is not look at the racism on the streets of America today, shocking attack. I think they should say look at the sexism, or both. Remind me what it's called when the showing. Anyway, it should be from a radical feminist perspective. And I said I did oversimplify that. So that's what I'm thinking. Did that even answer your question? At least some of it.
Okay.
Okay, the term is the
Yes.
intersectionalism, something like that.
I need to write that down. That's bad on my part.
Yeah.
Intersectionality? Intersection what?
Sectionalism, something like that. Intersectionalism.
Intersectionality, I think.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, my bad. I should definitely know that by now. That's to my shame. Sorry about that. Intersectionalism. Okay. Gina, I think it was. I think I probably only caught half of your question anyway. Was that half answered? And is there another half?
What does that word mean?
Good. Someone else doesn't know. Okay, can anyone else explain that word? To your shame as well, in that case. To both of our shame. Can anyone explain that word? Intersectionalism.
And okay, I think this was actually created like in the third wave of feminism. And what they like during the second wave of feminism, they could just say that, okay, women, like general, every woman is going through sexism. But then they actually, during the third wave, they had to find out that there are actually layers to actually sexism. Take, for example, you are Black woman. You are going actually to face two things. There is actually sexism, which will also be on top of that, there is the issue to do with race. Yeah, so you face two kinds of like discrimination, your color and your gender in one person, which actually a white woman will only just face one, which is sexism without the racism. So there will be a difference between a Black woman and a white woman. Yeah, they are going to face different abuse. Yeah, and that is what it means now. Intersectionalism is actually now to consider that different layers of abuse, like.
That's what I understand it to be. And then there's further layers. What if it was a Black lesbian, Black woman who is homosexual? So then there would be added prejudices that she would be affected by as well. So, bit of a guess. Maybe I shouldn't even say it, but I'm just looking at it now. Sectionalism. I think it might be that there's different sections of society, and if you fall into two or three of them that suffer prejudice, then that would be the intersectionalism. But either way,
and
by the way,
you can finish your point.
But we're not
okay, sorry, I'm jumping to a completely different subject, but part of my syllabus, which I intended to present, was how to make something your own. So you watch a video of Elder Tess, you have to make it your own, not just copy word for word or just copy. Okay, so an idea could be for someone like me that doesn't really understand that word and it was new to me. Elder Tess mentions intersectionalism. I can present what she presents, but expand on this and spend like 45 minutes, half an hour on this. that's how I would make it my own. That's a different subject, how to make it your own. So you go ahead.
Yeah, there is a hand in the chat room. Susan. Susan.
Yeah, I think Ras was tackled it. I wanted to answer on intersectionalism. I think it is done.
Okay. So the point I was making here is, let's say Elder Tess wakes up one day and tells us all how bad the external messengers are, okay? And we all go out there taking it as our doctrine. We all present to each other and tell our friends and family, it's all bad, there's no hope, they're all terrible. And the following Sabbath, I'm good, because it's opinion, I'm not being silly or anything, but she wakes up in a good mood. I'm not trying to trivialize Elder Tess or anything like that. But she's feeling more optimistic, and so she tells us all about Hillary Clinton and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's lives and achievements. Okay, now we all go, wait, what's going on? She's contradicting herself, or something like that. You might, misunderstand unless we're mature plants. Okay, so that's my take on opinion. I think even today, if a reporter was just to state the facts, I think it's even then problematic. So I take another subject, which I'm not qualified to speak about, but I'm going to use it as an example. And I'm not qualified to speak about it because it is so complicated. Okay, Hamas versus Israel. Who are the goodies and who are the baddies? Okay, so I think I'll just leave it there because, but you can see that even just reporting the facts, you could report, for example, one-sided facts or so-called facts that you only get from one source. Are you going to take the death toll that the Palestinian Authority give you or that the IDF give you? Russia, Ukraine, are you going to take the losses according to the Ukrainian data, the British, or the Russians? Because if you say how many Russians have died in the war, probably going to get very different answers depending on what source you go to. So we're in an information war. Everybody's fighting. So I'm not sure it's just as easy as just to present the facts. I think you'd have to put the radical feminist opinion behind it, perspective, in order to be more successful here. Okay, just shout out. I won't necessarily keep asking any questions. So if we've seen that you still get some good, they're not all bad all the time. So that's not true. They're not all bad all the time. And yet, this is true, that they have failed. So you see, it's not, again, we have to be mature plants and we have to zoom in a bit and try to understand things not too simplistically. It's a little bit more complicated in the world today. So if we move over here, all Levites has failed and all are bad. And I've put fact. Is that true?
Aaron. Yeah, I want to. Anyway, I want to start it on a very basic level. So let me show my ignorance here. So, what's an opinion? Maybe I think you help me to understand if we can start it from that. What's an opinion? How would it look like?
Okay.
Even citing an example. Yeah, and the simplest of the simplest, so that I can now connect it to the messengers. Yeah, thanks. Good.
Not so ignorant after all. It's a good question because if I go through the examples we've already used, so an elderly Chinese lady is knocked to the ground and beaten. So that would be a fact because you'd probably have CCTV of that. Then you get into motive. I think the speaker, if it was Joseph or someone, talked about motive. Maybe she had just done something really bad. So she had to be stopped and
Oh,
taken
can
into
even make
custody or
it to
something.
be. We can make it to be maybe let's say a black woman, like an old black woman, where they say that a black women they are, in short, they are mischievous, they're prostitute, like things like that. So maybe she deserves it. So anyway, there is that. You see it in the world openly. You see that opinion that they have. So if you can make it to be a black woman, maybe it would help very much. Simplistic.
Tell you why I'm struggling so much. Um,
I think that somebody wants to help us there.
if anyone wants to help, just please shout out. I can't keep asking.
Uh, like, let me try and I'm trying to think of a very simple example. An example is like if we read Daniel 11 verse 41, the fact or the message will be that this is actually a Sunday law. That is the fact. Yeah. Now, on how like that old Sunday law will look like and like the reality of it. Like if someone, probably if it's Elder Chef, who start now to look at how that Sunday law will look like, think what the messenger is going to give. It's actual opinions on how actually the messenger thinks that Sunday law will look like. Probably the messenger would say, uh, probably in when the Sunday law is passed, we reach in verse 41. Yeah, probably people are not going to be allowed to go in shops. Yeah, they are not going to be allowed in shops and the other things. And those are actually now opinions based on like how the messenger thinks the Sunday law will look like. Yeah. Of which, if probably we reach to the Sunday law, those opinions might not even look like the way the Sunday law is. But that won't actually destroy the message because the message was verse 41, it's a Sunday law. Yeah. And a last example is, I think, over the study of the, which is a simple one, the last president of the USA. I think you remember that study. Yeah, that study says, oh, these four.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so the one who will be elected, Donald Trump, is the last. Yeah. Now, the opinions now will be coming in that what this means, the last, is until Christ comes. yeah, there won't be any president in America. 2, in this president, actually, there will be martial law. Yeah. And they are going to use that board which looks over taxes, and it will force the movement, using the issue to do with tax exempt status, something like that. And those are now like the opinions that Elder Jeff was actually putting to that message. Yeah. And those opinions may be correct or wrong. Yeah. And if they turn out to be wrong, it won't actually make that message in that study to be wrong, but the opinions are the ones which will turn out to be wrong. Yeah. I think this is how I understand it. Yeah.
Okay.
And the opinions, they are not
And in
always bad. Yeah. They are not always bad. I think we need them, just like in external. The opinions, they are actually also important because an event will happen. Yes, and they will report the fact this is an event. But we have seen them inviting, if it is the war, they will invite those generals, the veterans in war, to come and give their opinions on how they understand that event which has happened. And those opinions they will give, they will help us based on probably their knowledge and how they see military things. And again, they might also turn out not to be correct. Yeah. I think recently we heard something when those pipes, oil pipes, were actually attacked. And everyone reported that those were actually attacked, which is the fact. But when it comes to opinions, some say it's Ukraine, and others say, no, it's Russia. Yeah, those are opinions. But the fact is, those pipes were attacked. Yeah.
So the only thing really that stands out from what, oh, you finished or?
I'm done. I'm done.
The only thing which stands out in my mind about what you just said is that some of those things which you labeled opinions will actually be facts or will one day become fact. So, and you actually pointed that out yourself, I think.
Yeah.
You said Elder Jeff thinks such and such is going to happen at Sunday Law, and someone else thinks something else will happen at Sunday Law. But once the Sunday Law comes, we're going to find out who was right and who was wrong. And one of them is going to be factually right. The fact is, it was either Ukraine or Russia who blew up that pipeline. So it's not really an opinion, it's just we don't know the fact. You can have your opinion on who it was, but who it was is a fact. Whereas I see opinion as a little bit more ambiguous. I see what actually happened as a fact. So Israel has led an incursion into Gaza. That's a fact. Israel doesn't deny it. No one denies it. But were they too heavy-handed? Did they just kill civilians without due regard? Did they target civilians, which would be illegal? Or was that necessary because terrorists were hiding themselves and weapons in schools and hospitals? And is that a fact or not? Were they? Like tunnels underneath schools. They were launching rockets from school parking lots and etc. So even if you had all the facts and figures, even if you worked for the CIA or someone, and you knew all the facts of where Hamas was hiding and attacking from, it's still an opinion whether Netanyahu has been too heavy-handed or not doing enough. Okay. I'll give you an example of why it's an opinion in my mind. So I think the opinion that it's too heavy-handed is fairly obvious. Thousands of Palestinian civilians killed. Okay, it's overkill. So I saw a little YouTube short. Don't get your news from YouTube shorts. I just happened to see this one. And there was a pro-Palestinian protester standing with their board, their placard, you know, Free Palestine, whatever it was. And sort of a tricky person, reporter style, went up to them and they said, do you have any children? And she says, yeah, you know, whatever, 3 children and 4 grandchildren. And he said, okay, how many daughters, how many sons? 3 daughters, 1 son. He said, okay, if Hamas had taken them hostage, and you know what Hamas reportedly do to their hostages, say taking your 3 female daughters hostage and 1 granddaughter, what would you want Netanyahu to do? And she said, I wouldn't rest until he got them back. And he said, how should he do that? She just went silent, felt awkward for a long time. And in the end, she just couldn't answer. And then the reporter said, so if they're being held in a school or a hospital or something, would you tell Netanyahu to just go into that school and get them? And because he made it subjective, in other words, emotionally loaded, because he used her daughters and granddaughters, she said yes. So the very thing she's protesting about, against the heavy-handedness, as soon as you make it subjective, you just flip opinion. So that's why, I think it's, in my mind, it's a clear example of opinion, because you can flip depending on what side you're in, even though the facts have remained the same. The reporter didn't go up to her and say, actually, you've been lied to, and the death toll is only 100 Palestinian civilians rather than 10,000 or whatever it is right now. Okay. Does that make sense? Anything? And the reason I bring subjectivity in, I probably should have used that word rather than.
Yeah, I have a question. Can we say, will I be correct if I say, where there is no light or evidence, the messengers use their opinions? But if they have light on something, then they will actually now have facts. Like if I go to an example, this is just like the one I gave the example on Ukraine, probably the pipes which were attacked. And probably if they don't have evidence on who did it, probably they are going to say, okay, it's this one. Yeah, based on how they actually just analyze something. Then when they have the evidence, they're going to come back and say, no, according to the evidence, it's actually the other one. Yeah. So my question is, can I be wrong if I say when there is no light on something, someone is going to give opinions? Yeah, and if there is now light or sufficient evidence, then it becomes facts.
So what you said is a truism. Okay, if you don't know who blew up the pipeline and you've been asked to report on it, you're going to give your opinion. But what if you weren't subjective reporter? What if you were a very professional, objective reporter? And what if you stated, we don't know who blew it up. This is what the Russians say. This is what the CIA says. This is what the Ukrainian intelligence says and British intelligence says. And you tried to do and then you said, so I've only reported the facts, which is true.
Okay.
You see, the problem I'm having with that example is there is a right or a wrong.
Yeah.
Either Russia or Ukraine blew it up.
Yeah.
And that's not an opinion. So
Okay.
you could have an opinion that Russia blew it. I don't know who blew it up. Do you know who actually blew it up in the end?
Yeah, according to the evidence, it was said that actually it's a group that actually supported Ukraine.
Ukraine, okay. So we'll just say
Yeah, which
Ukraine
did it.
blew it up. Now,
Yeah.
I could go to Ukraine, knock on a door, and I could say Ukraine blew it up. And that person could say no, they didn't. It was a lie. I don't know. You see, they can still have a wrong opinion, but it's been stated as
Thank you.
fact.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's the reason we're going through this, because it's confusing. So who's good or bad in the war in Israel at the moment? Okay, because the motives, obviously Hamas are terrorists. That was bad. Okay. But then if you go into why they ended up having terrorism as part of the Palestinian makeup, the oppression of the Palestinian people, the settlements, and you can go backwards and forwards on this, going back like 50 and 70 years. So I think who's good, who's bad, can be opinion, but the facts. Okay, I want to just correct myself. I'm not working from a script here. It's basically impossible to write notes or a script on this. And so when I said Elder Tess wakes up in a good mood and then she wakes up in a bad mood, I didn't want to trivialize that, trivialize Elder Tess's ministry at all. I should have said she wakes up, and she's being subjective. Okay, rather than she's giving her opinion. In other words, is all I'm trying to say. Just trying to say she wakes up one day and has one opinion, but then she's balanced the next day, and so she gives you the other opinion. Okay, which means the first opinion she gave you isn't the only opinion or the only side or the only facts. I'll go back to another example I used. I didn't review the story before I came here. I didn't even know it was going to come up, but I'm just going to say, I think the story was, we'll just go with it, that the Proud Boys, they had assembled in these vans or a vehicle. And they were going to go to this sort of gay pride event and disrupt it. I don't know if they're going to do it violently or not. We'll say violently. We'll say they had guns. Okay. So that's the fact. And then this is where you get into opinions, I think. Okay, so one reporter from CNN or something, I don't know, one reporter concentrates on all the racial problems with the Proud Boys. And they say the Proud Boys were going to go and disrupt this gender-related parade. And the Proud Boys have this record of racism, A, B, C, D, facts and figures, all these statistics. There's 99% white people in the Proud Boys and all of this kind of stuff. I'm making it up, it's not true. Okay, but their perspective is the racism of the Proud Boys. Okay, or you get another reporter that says they were going to go and disrupt this gender-related event, and they concentrate on all the gender-related facts and figures of the Proud Boys and how they've disturbed transgender things and stood against gay rights and so for women's rights and so forth, what they believe a woman's place is and that kind of thing. So I just want to throw that out there, that you've got a factual event and then you can take it from a racial perspective or a gendered perspective. And we know that the gendered perspective would be the correct one. Okay. And that's where this has gone wrong. And so because apparently, I would assume, because most of them, or the wave is behind covering race and not gender, or race more than gender, they have failed. Okay, any thoughts while I think of where to go next? Okay then. So we've made some sense of this. They're not all bad, but they have failed. So are all the Levites bad, and or have they all failed? So do we still think they failed? I guess that's a silly question. I think we've agreed they failed as a group. Does that mean they're all bad? Susan, I don't know if you're in a position to speak. Maybe there's a lot of background noise or your connection. Any thoughts?
I have nothing. I'm just going. Oh, shashi with some.
Someone does have their hand up though, so please go ahead.
Translation eko ili Susan.
Yeah, that's you. But twekonka Joseph. Twekonka. Yeah, sorry.
Pele kaisa alande guys.
And
Yeah, we are following.
mm,
Now we want to figure out which one is good.
mm,
You have stated that when an event here has happened, actually those reporters, they report, yet they give their opinions on that event, which I think is good, because you can't just state the event and you just end there without, you have to interpret it. What I can see is an opinion is that idea you have as the root cause to that event which has actually happened. And we have heard that some reporters, they are biased. To what I can see, Aaron said, they are to the angle where they are subjective. For instance, they just see on the issue of race, then they leave the issue of gender. And actually, us as a movement, we ponder much on the side of gender. And according to what I heard, they fail because they lean to racism instead of digging out in all areas. They figure out sexism, which is the biggest issue in our generation. And on that angle, they risk even the Nathaniels, because they are not going to have a big picture on that event. So we are following, but we want to understand much on how we can differentiate facts from opinion, because I heard him saying opinion one day can be facts. Yeah, like it is prophetic, it is future. When it comes to pass, then it becomes a fact. Maybe I heard him well or not. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I need your clarification on that. Maybe I mistaken you.
From what I understood, I think you're correct. If I understood you correctly.
Thank
The
you.
focus was on race, not gender, basically. I've changed this. I think I've already forgotten what was there before. I think it was what was the motive? Okay, the motive could be fact. Okay, an elderly Chinese lady is knocked down to the ground by two young men. Their motive would probably be a fact, actually. So the opinion, was the motive just? You know, were they too heavy-handed, perhaps? So I've changed it to, I think it was wrong before. Okay. So let's go back to this one. Are all Levites bad? Because they're not here. So we know they failed. We can just tick that one already. They failed as a group. They failed as a group. But they're not all bad. So maybe they're not all bad. What do we think?
Gertrude. Hello, my name is Gertrude.
Yes.
I
Gertrude,
think
go ahead.
the all Levites are not bad, but they have failed as a group, and some individual are good and they follow the message. But as a group, they have failed, and not all who are bad. Yes.
Okay. So when you say bad, I'm going to assume you mean prophetically, not morally. Don't mean all bad people. But you said some are following the message. Okay.
Yes, yes,
So that could be true,
yes. Some are
or
following the message.
it could not be true. We don't know of any, do we? Does anyone know of even one Adventist who's following the message, but that hasn't come in, wants to get baptized?
It can be true,
Gertrude, do you know?
or yeah, some are following. If you consider the lines, yeah, some are following, not all are failed, but as a group, yeah, but some are following, even if we didn't see them, but the lines can tell us.
So which part of the lines tell us that there will be at least one individual Adventist following the message that we don't know about?
Which line?
Which line or which waymark or which event?
Lines.
Does anyone have any ideas which?
Maybe on the line of the Nathanims, maybe someone can come and join.
I'm hoping there'll still be a group of Nethinims that have succeeded. My hope is that just because the Levites failed as a group doesn't automatically condemn a completely different group to failure. So it's possible. I don't think you can just say we know the Levites failed, therefore the Nethinim have failed. Because maybe there'll be enough Nethinim to come in as a group who listen to a few good messengers and articles. So I'm wondering if, can you say, well, on the line of Noah? No, you can't do that. I'm not sure how you would do that anyway, but that's an interesting thought. If anyone wants to add to that. We know that the Levites should exist as a group from the lines because you have the clean animals in the line of Noah. You have the second group from Pentecost onwards in the Omega of ancient Israel, from Pentecost to 30, from 31 Pentecost to 34 AD, that group, second group from the church. By the way, no, let's not go there. Okay. So they're not all bad. Okay, so if you say you're pretty sure there's at least one Adventist following the message, they just haven't got in touch yet, then you would be right. But I don't know of any. And I think we could only say that if we definitely knew of at least one. So if we don't all definitely know of at least one, are you all right if I take that off, Gertrude? We just assume it is an assumption, so I understand your point. It could be a valid point, but as we don't know that at this stage, are you okay if I just take that off and say, as far as we can tell, they are all bad because they're not in this movement, so they're not going to be saved. Now I'm confusing myself because you can't say any individual will be saved or lost. I think we need to stick with the group, the whole group. Okay, instead of all Levites, because I can't say every individual Adventist is lost. I don't know that. As a group. So the group. Maybe that's where I threw you, actually, Gertrude. Now I see your point. With that perspective, I think I'm more inclined to agree with you, actually. So if I change the words that the group Levites have failed, then I think we could just agree that they're all, therefore, that group is bad. It's lost, it's failed. Are we all comfortable with that? And do we all understand the sticky situation I got myself into that Gertrude pointed out? That Gertrude corrected me on.
Yes, clear, understood.
Yeah. Okay, give you a few moments. Oh, what time is it? Oh, wow. Okay, so we've done, what time? 10? Is it nearly time to close? We've got 15 minutes left.
Yes.
Okay. So this is your last chance for today to throw out any thoughts. I've probably made you all more confused. I find it confusing myself. But at least if we can get stuff on the board, I can see where I went wrong. We've talked a few things through, and it's on the board, which helps me to think it's not just a mess in my head. I've realized I have to change this. Gertrude corrected me on this, etc. Yes.
Yeah, can I say something? Anyway,
Yes, please.
I think I'm beginning to understand a bit. Yeah, I was very behind. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know, maybe I might be wrong, but let me just give it a try. So, opinions and facts. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to the example that Professor gave of what happened with Will Smith. Now I'm going to look at it at the perspective of the wife. I think forgotten her name. Yeah. So I think she's Jaden. I don't know, but somewhere there. So an event will happen, and what will happen to that event? There are these things that have led to that event to happen. So when it comes to reporters reporting on that, they have to report exactly as it was fact, what transpired, what happened, what led to that person to, what led Will Smith to beat that other person. I've forgotten his name. And then once that is reported nicely and done, and then that person, these are facts without leaving out anything. That person will comment, yeah, after analyzing what has happened. So the reporter may even add their opinions. So opinions, they're not always bad, depending on if that person, their opinion is correct in relation to the event that has happened. So you find that others, there will be a reporter who omit certain things because they are biased. So somebody, instead of reporting it, this person hit this person because of this, they'll report it. Black men are violent. You can see what has happened there at Oscars and things like that, and those things aren't supposed to happen. They're not supposed to happen like that. That's like, I remember coming across such articles and things like that. Then they'll go on to comment and add on their opinions. In this point or in this regard, their opinion is wrong because one, they are biased. They haven't reported that event correctly as it happened. So their opinion as well becomes wrong because their opinion is not based on those facts. So our opinions wrong? It depends. So when we come to the message, what I'm thinking is this. So they, our message, or let's talk about, let me put it in this way, that how should I put it? Okay, like I think the best that I can come up with. Okay, let me just mute a bit, then structure it nicely before I say anything further. But we can start with where I've left it off from the news, the external events, news people and things like that. Then before I come to the movement, let me organize my thoughts nicely once more.
Okay. So I'll try to summarize in my own words what I think you said. You can let me know what you think. Excuse me. Okay. So while you were talking, I looked up the name of the man that he hit. It was Chris Rock, if that rings a bell.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so Will Smith. So there's an awards ceremony. Chris Rock says something. I'm going to say about his wife, about the woman he married. Okay. Chris Rock says something about the woman that Will Smith has married. Fact. Will Smith reacts by standing up, punching him, hitting him. Fact. And then he sits down. Okay, so all of that is fact. You can't change any of that. Okay, so I'm just going to use this, even if. Okay, so was the motive just? So you're Chris Rock's friend reporting on this. You're going to say the motive wasn't just. Will Smith, bad. He was too heavy-handed. And all that's opinion, because then you can go to Will Smith's friend and say, we want you to write an article on this. You're his friend. You could do a good job. And Will Smith's friend says exactly what happened. So that would be the same. Be the same as Chris Rock's friend. But this would all be completely opposite. Was the motive just? Yes, Will Smith was entitled to do that. I'm a cultural feminist, and the job of the man is to protect, now I can say, his wife, his property, because I'm a cultural feminist. Okay, so he was doing gender roles there, which I think is good. Who's good or bad? Chris Rock's bad this time, You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have disrespected. Was Will Smith heavy-handed? No. What he did was necessary. So is that a kind of using this sort of template? Is that an okay summary of what you meant?
Yes, I think yes.
Okay. So thanks, because that has made it clearer in my mind. Using Chris Rock and Will Smith was a much simpler model or example. So thanks for that. So now I'm going to complicate things a bit more, because if you're a cultural feminist, if you're giving a cultural feminist's opinion, then we know that you're wrong, because you're not meant to be. God wants you to be a radical feminist. So when you say, okay, so I just want to add that. I don't think I can apply that to the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident, no. But I just want to add that in. We would say that cultural feminist was wrong. In other words, it's wrong to be a cultural feminist. Okay, I guess that just about wraps it up. Because I'd never done this before, my fear was that I wouldn't have enough to present. So what I've actually gone and done is created quite a lot to present that we probably won't get through now. I think we've got 2 more classes. So what I'm going to do is send a couple of documents which are very self-explanatory, and I'll put a note on them anyway. And if you want to, you can look at them during the week, or you can just file them away, up to you. And that way you can come, if you want, you can come to the next meetings with some of my thoughts already in your mind. Okay, any last thoughts before we close?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send a picture of the board work and let's close.
Joseph,
Oh, go ahead, please go.
yes. At least I've gotten something on the issue of opinion and the facts. Yeah, but where I'm a bit behind is how to relate to the opinion, to those opinions. Yeah. How can I relate to that opinion? Even if I know, for example, if I know that this opinion is right, then how should I take it? Or if I don't know, how should I relate to that opinion? I'm blank. He has reported the facts. At the same time, that person has given an opinion. Now, how should I relate to that opinion, for example, if I don't know if it is right or wrong, or if I know it is right?
So if we go back to this example here, Elder Tess spends 1 week studying all the bad in these left-wing external messengers and presents it. And then the next week, she says, now I'm going to present the other side and study all of that and present it. So the way we relate to it, I don't really know. I'm thinking I'm starting to look deeper into even this and start to pick holes in it myself. So shall we think about it during the week? How do we relate to that? Well, one thing we shouldn't do is take, if we think about point 1, 2, and 3, we shouldn't take this, imagine this, I've made up this presentation that Elder Tess has done, how all the messengers have failed, and we shouldn't then go and silence people or whatever, prove any point using it, because then they could just turn around and use the other side to prove their point. So if I use if I use a left-wing article in a presentation to prove a point or whatever, understanding that when she says they're all bad, they've all failed, doesn't mean you can turn around to me and say, no, you must be wrong because you're using a left-wing article and we know that they've all failed. You couldn't use it that way. You have to understand. I have to leave it there. But it's been very interesting for me, really.
So
I can't answer.
I'll wait.
Okay, I think I should close there before I dig a hole even deeper for myself. Let's pray.
You must have some.
Sorry, did you want to say something? Okay, let's pray. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you for these concepts. And all I hope is that we're growing and maturing with the rain which you send. I just pray that you will help us, have mercy upon us to that end. In Jesus' name, amen. So thank you so much. I think I'll see you next Sabbath. God
Thank
bless
you
my
so
friends.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Regina. Ama video aisure
Ah, bye.
urefu ama video hapa. Susan,
Hey,
asheni video. Kulera ndi
Yale monekata ama video ya Mzambia. Kwa fita.
iwe Regina ile takufitire.
Ah, ndela naile tamuna mona kom. Na kufi